Hello. Thanks for taking the time to be here. I really appreciate it. And there's lots of other things you could have done with this time, and you've chosen to spend it listening to me. The title of this talk is So You Want to Write a Book? Maybe you already have. And this is actually coming from a lot of places. And I want to try to distill those. I want to try to give you some ideas of ways that you can proceed once you kind of understand where I'm coming from with this. And just kind of give you some reassurance that, that thinking of things, framing things in this way is okay. I'm coming to you here from my library. As you can see, we have a lot of books. I felt it was appropriate. So where's all this? Where's this coming from? All right, it's coming from several places. First of all, those who have followed my work for a while know that I have written in the past about paper being a better backup than anything digital. I.e., that if you really want something to last using a proven technology, and by proven I literally mean thousands of years, not dozens, then paper is the only and best solution for that. And maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, who would want to read my words 1,000 years from now? And the answer to that is, we don't know. We have no way of knowing. We don't know what might be important down the road, long after we're dead. But what I do know is that if it's not there, it can't ever be important. If it is there, it will be. So how does this relate to blogging, right? And microblog? Well, if you really want to back up your blog and make it durable, make it something that would last, make it something that maybe your grandchildren or great-grandchildren might read, the best way to do that is to print it out. Yes, I know, print your entire blog. That's such a pain in the ass. Well, really it's not, but we'll get to that later. All right, so that's one place it's coming from. It's coming from this idea that that our writing is important and it's durable, and the things that we're writing about, even the quick quips, can offer an insight into this time period, into this history that might be interesting to future generations. I know that's grandiose thinking, but guess what? All we know about the past is what survived. All we know, everything we know about the past is what survived. And if you want to provide some knowledge about today to the future, you need to make sure that knowledge survives. Here's the second place this kind of comes from, and that is, have you ever had Coca-Cola out of a champagne glass? No? Why not? Is it because you drink it out of a bottle, right? You've had it out of a bottle, sure. You probably had it out of a can, You've had it that way. I'm sure you've gone to a restaurant at some point and ordered a Coke, and it's come in a glass with ice through a straw. You've had it that way. And maybe you've gone to like a McDonald's or a Subway or whatever. You've had it in a paper cup with a straw and plastic lid. And that's another way. But why not out of a champagne glass? I mean, it's a vessel like any of those other vessels. You can put Coke in there. Why don't you? Well, it's because a champagne glass is called a champagne glass for a reason. And you're generally going to use it for champagne because it's called a champagne glass. But that doesn't mean you can't put a Coke in it. And guess what? When you put a Coke in that champagne glass, the experience changes. The way that you view that Coke changes. The way that you experience that Coke, the way that you drink it changes. A champagne glass is designed to bring the essence of a drink that much fuller into the nose, right? So it's going to change the way that you taste it, the same way that drinking it out of a bottle versus drinking it out of a glass versus drinking it over ice through a straw versus any other way changes the experience and even the taste to a certain extent of that Coke. And I say all this to say that the way that we frame things with words matters. And if you're just a blogger who blogs on a blog, you're going to be a blogger who blogs on a blog. But there's nothing saying that you're not a writer who writes essays for an online audience. Look what I just did there. I took the same activity, I changed the frame, and now it sounds different. It feels different. It has been framed in a way that elevates it in the same way that pouring Coke into a champagne glass elevates that drink. And therefore, what is stopping you from taking that next step? Who is an essayist who writes essays for any audience, online or off. And for your online audience, you post those to a blog. And for the offline audience, maybe you collect those up and print them out as a book. And another place this is coming from is the idea that we really need to think about, I know you're thinking, well, if people read my work online, if I were to take all that and just print it, why would they want to read it? Well, honestly, there are lots of things that I go back to. Lots of posts from other writers that I go back and reread because they made an impact on me. And quite frankly, I would love if more online writers, like what if John Gruber, for instance, who writes about, Apple products mainly in the universe of Apple products, were to do a book of every iPhone review. He writes these, fairly long, fairly detailed, insightful iPhone reviews. How cool would it be to be able to buy a book with every one from the original iPhone to the iPhone 12, right? All compiled together. And you go there on the site, and he's already done the hard work for you. You don't have to dig through the site and look for, well, where's his review of this or where's his review of that? No, it's all right there. It's all been curated for you. How wonderful would it be to go to, say, Kotke, or one of the, and he's taken some of his best posts or some of the things that he's most proud of, collected it into a volume and put it out there for people to read. Maybe you've written a lot about a particular subject. Maybe you've written a lot about, you write often about sunflowers. You're really into sunflowers or beekeeping. Let's just say you've gotten into beekeeping. You're super into it. Well, how helpful might it be to take all those posts that you've written about beekeeping, and even though you write about other things on your blog, and beekeeping's not the only thing you write about, But I bet you beekeepers might be interested and might find some value in just your beekeeping posts collected together into a single place and say, okay, this is everything on beekeeping. Yeah, you can do that with categories online, but you could also do that, make a book out of that. And now you've increased your audience, and you've made it more accessible, and most importantly, you've made it more durable. Durable in the sense that that thing could theoretically last for thousands of years. Okay, now that I've laid out kind of the various places where my ideas around this are coming from, and I have given you some ideas of things that you could do. So, great, Patrick, I'm on board. I want to take my stuff. I want to make a book out of it. I know I've written, how do I go about doing this? Oh, I mean, there's lots of ways. It really depends on what your purpose is, right? If your purpose is simply like, you blog and you're mainly just blogging, or more like an online journal. You don't care if anyone else reads it. In fact, you don't necessarily, like that's not its purpose. Its purpose is really just kind of an online journal of your thoughts and the things that are interesting to you and that sort of thing. Well, it's pretty easy. One thing that I do is I pipe all of my stuff, whether it's posted to my blog at patrickrhone.net or Instagram or what have you. And I use if this then that, but I believe that Manton has recently made it much easier using the apps, the microblog apps, to get stuff into day one. But you can put all that stuff in day one. Now, how does that relate to a book? Well, guess what day one has? Day one has the ability to order a professionally printed book of your of your stuff, of your anything you put in there, of your journals. And in day one, you may know you can keep multiple journals. Obviously, this is kind of more Mac specific, but I'm a Mac guy, so I can't talk to the PC side of things. But I know in the Mac app, it's fairly easy to do, and you have a nice amount of control about how it looks and how it's laid out and that sort of thing. And you order it up, and it's kind of, there's a base price, and then there's a number of pages after that, depending on cost. But yeah, one of the things I do is every year. Maybe I have it somewhere. Hold on. Let me see. Hold on. Here. Wait. Oh, is it there? Oh, yeah. There it is. Look, see? This is it. This is 2020. Look at that. Look how pretty that is. See? I don't know. And it's very nicely printed. You have this kind of nice record of your year. I mean, this is a really nice way to go if really your only intention is essentially a backup, right? Essentially a backup of your blog. I like this one. I do this, and so what I do is I keep journals for every year. So I've started a new one for 2021, and now everything is piping into the 2021 one. And that way, when I get to the end of the year, on December 31st or January 1st, one of my tasks is, time to print out the year, order up a book of it from the fine folks at Day One, and get a nice printed job of that. So if that's your purpose, great. That's the direction you want to go. I will gladly and proudly state that all of my books, whether it be enough This Could Help. The Minimal Mac book is another great example. They're blog posts. They're collections of blog posts. We can, I'm calling it that just to make it easy for you. What they are is essays, because I'm an essayist. I'm an essayist who writes primarily for an online audience, but also sometimes for an offline audience. That offline audience reads my essays in a book. And because of that framing, it is very easy for people to understand that the things that are in the book are a collection of essays, and that it feels worth paying money for. But honestly, all of that stuff either was or could be posted to a blog. This Could Help was originally kind of piloted in a newsletter. I wrote all this stuff for a newsletter that I sent out called This Could Help, and I then took a collection of those things I wrote for the newsletter and I bundled them together and put them out there as a book. Every one of my minimal guides, I have a minimal guide about writing, and a minimal guide about becoming a Mac consultant, and a minimal guide about mindfulness and meditation. Every single one of those blog posts. And all I did was take the blog post that I posted to the blog, copy and paste it into Scrivener, and then use Scrivener to output a book, because it's very good at that. You can directly output books for Kindle or the EPUB format, e-reader books. You can also output PDFs and covers and whatnot that would be acceptable for uploading to Lulu or CreateSpace or one of the other print-on-demand booksellers. And there you go. Now your book is on Amazon. Now your book is on Lulu. Now you can point people to it. You can put a price on it. And you can say, hey, go here and buy this. Why not? What's stopping you? I'd say that what stops most people is people don't just think about the frame that way. They think, oh, this is just a blog post. Stop that. Reframe. Because what I have found oftentimes is that when something changes, when something shifts like that, it's not the thing that has changed. It's my perspective that has changed. And you can help your readers change their perspective too. Minimal Mac, actually, the Minimal Mac book is a good example of that. And all of these things you can go and find pretty easily if you just Google them, DuckDuckGo. So I'm not going to oh, here's my book, hawk my book. I'm just, money's just not, I don't care. I'd love it if you bought my book. I'd be honored, but you don't have to. I'm just saying that I did a fairly popular Mac blog called Minimal Mac for 5 years. At the height of its popularity, it was getting, hundreds of thousands of views every day. And at the height of its popularity, I basically ran out of things to say on that subject. Because the funny thing about minimalism is that there's only so much you can say about it. That's why it's called minimalism. You eventually run out of things to say, and you're like, I'm just repeating myself here. There's no other perspective for me to have. So, at the height of its popularity, I decided to end it. really kind of from a business perspective, no, this is not what you do. But like I said, you see, money's not that big of a deal to me, so I don't let it drive me, or my decisions. But that is to say that one of the things that people still to this day really appreciate is the fact that I put the Minimal Mac book out there for people to buy. I did the work for them. I took everything that I had written on the subject that I thought was important. I just want this to be really understood and key, because you see, this is not this is not the entire blog, right? This is not all of Minimal Mac. That's not what we got going on here, right? That's not what's in the book. What's in the book was curated by me. I went through all 5,000 something posts. I forget the number. Maybe it was 3,000 something. I don't know. But regardless, I went through several thousand posts. And I methodically picked out the things that I thought best represented that website and what I had to say there and what I wanted to say there. And I then copied them into Scrivener, one by one. I then sent it off to a friend of mine who does editing to catch all the little typos and other things that I missed even then. And then I put it out there for people. And it was really not that difficult. And still to this day, people buy that book. And do you know why they buy that book? Because it's actually cheaper, time-wise, than going through the thousands of posts to find what they want or need or are looking for, which was kind of information about how to make their technical life simpler, especially if they're Mac users. But even if they're not, just some thoughts and ideas around the intersection of simplicity and technology. And I think that that's a valuable thing that you can do for people. So that's really it. I'm just here to encourage you to either A, go back, look through your archives. There may be stuff there that is valuable, that is worth curation, that is worth collecting and putting together into some sort of volume, even if it's just for yourself to print off and to save and to have some record of what you've done with your online life. And maybe that's important to you. Maybe you really want to say, hey, gosh, I really wish I could write a book. Well, guess what? Not only might you have written a book already based on kind of what you've put out there online, and it just needs to be collected together and with a title put on it, and like, here's my book. But also, maybe this will change the way that you go forward with blogging. Maybe this will change the way that you look at it. Maybe now, instead of being just some guy who writes about, managed IT solutions, maybe going forward you'll start to say, okay, what would this look like if it were next to other things like it and collected in a book? What would this look like as a book? And maybe I should write going forward with that in mind. Maybe I should post to my blog going forward with that in mind. Change the frame, and suddenly you've changed the experience. When in fact, it's all the same thing, just your perspective is different. Once again, thanks for coming. I hope you have a good rest of your time that you choose to spend with the other wonderful presenters here. I'd like to thank Jean and Manton and all of the other folks that make Microblog possible, that make it a community that is worth participating in. I can't tell you how much joy it brings me whenever I am there. I'm kind of a quiet guy. I only post and reply and stuff like that when I have something I think is really important and meaningful to add. But do know that I am there and I am watching and I'm reading and I'm spelunking through the Discover section, which is absolutely wonderful and fantastic. And Jean does such a wonderful job of hand curating that. So really, just thanks to every one of you. I really do appreciate you all.